In the state of Meghalaya, there's this huge financial mystery, and it's hiding right out in the open. It's a story that's tied to the electricity that powers our lives, and to a massive, kind of invisible debt that's growing every single day, every time one of us flips a switch.
I mean, just let that sink in for a moment. That simple, everyday thing you do is connected to this much bigger, much more complicated financial mess. So what is this debt really? And how in the world did it get so big? And that's the big question we're going to tackle right now. So let's pull back the curtain on this so-called shadow debt, okay? Let's figure out exactly where it comes from, and more importantly, why it matters to absolutely everyone in the state.
Okay, so to really get this, we've got to talk about the main player in this whole drama, the state's power company, the Meghalaya Energy Corporation Limited, or MECL. Because this is where we find the root of the problem. And honestly, it's a pretty fundamental one.
It sounds crazy, but it's a simple, staggering fact. For every single unit of electricity that MeECL delivers to your home or to a business, it actually loses money. This isn't just a bad year or a temporary slump. It means its business model is just fundamentally broken.
So, have a look at this. This really breaks it down, right? On one side, you've got the income. That's the price you and I pay on our bills. But then, look at the other side, the much bigger side. That's the actual cost to generate and deliver that power. Because of a whole mix of things, from inefficiencies to policy choices, that cost is just always higher than the price they're allowed to charge.
Okay, so that leads to a pretty obvious question, doesn't it? If a company is literally designed to lose money on everything it sells, how on earth is it still operating? How does it keep the lights on for all of us? Well, that's where the state government has to get involved.
To plug that giant financial hole we just talked about, MeECL has to borrow. And we're talking about huge amounts of money. But here's the catch. It's not a profitable business, so banks are, understandably nervous about lending to it. It's a lot like co-signing a loan for that one friend, the one, who's just awful with money. The state government of Meghalaya is basically playing the role of that overly generous friend.
And this slide just lays it out perfectly. Step 1, the power company is desperate for cash, just to survive. Step 2, the banks, they look at this and go, whoa, no way, that's way too risky. So step 3, the state government steps in and provides a guarantee. This is a promise, a legal promise that tells the bank, look, if MeECL can't pay you back, we will. And that guarantee is the only thing keeping the money flowing.
Right, so this promise, this guarantee, it actually has a technical name in the world of finance. It's a contingent liability. Think of it as a potential debt for the state. It doesn't show up on the main budget, so it kind of lurks in the shadows, off the official books. But, and this is a big but, if MeECL can't pay its loans, which is a very real risk, this hidden liability suddenly becomes a very real, very massive debt that the taxpayers have to cover.
All right, we've set the stage. We know what this shadow debt is, and we know how it gets created. Now, for the jaw-dropping part, just how much money are we actually talking about here?
What is the grand total of all of these government promises propping up the power company? Seriously, brace yourself, because the number we're about to see is, well, it's huge.
Okay, here it is. As of March 2023, the total amount of these government guarantees for the power sector was nearly 3,000 crore rupees. Let me say that again. 3,000 crore. That is a 3 followed by 10 zeros. It's an absolutely enormous potential liability just hanging over the state's finances.
Now, a number that big is hard to wrap your head around, so let's put it in perspective. 3,000 crore rupees is about the same as 7% of Meghalaya's entire gross state domestic product. So this one single hidden risk is equivalent to 7% of the total value of everything produced and all the services provided in the entire state in a whole year.
But maybe the most powerful way to think about this, the part that really hits home, is the opportunity cost. That 3,000 crore in guarantees just completely dwarfs the state's yearly budget for super important things like roads or education. Just imagine the schools that could be built, the healthcare that could be funded, or the infrastructure that could be improved with that kind of money. Instead, it's all tied up just keeping a broken system afloat.
So you get it, right? This isn't just some boring number on a spreadsheet. This shadow debt has very real consequences for every single person living in the state. In a way, it means people are forced to pay for their power twice, once on their monthly electricity bill and then again through the state's budget.
The knock-on effects here are just massive. Like we just saw, it basically elbows out funding for schools, water, and roads. It also makes it more expensive for the state to borrow money for anything else because lenders see this giant hidden risk looming. And, of course, it all leads to the most predictable ending, taxpayer money having to be used for the inevitable bailouts.
You know, there's a quote from the source material that just nails it. It says this shadow debt effectively mortgages the state's future to keep the lights on today. That's really what's happening. The state is trading its future development for present-day stability in the power sector.
So you're probably wondering, okay, is this a new thing? Did something just go wrong recently? Well, the really tough part is no, not at all. This is actually part of a long-running, predictable, and pretty destructive cycle.
This timeline tells the whole story. We have been down this exact road before. In the past, the state had to take on hundreds of crores of debt through bailout schemes like the UDE program. You fast forward to today, and here we are again, with 3,000 crore in guarantees. And the future? Well, it all points in one direction, this potential debt becoming a very real problem for the state budget. Again.
So let's be absolutely crystal clear about this. This isn't some one-off mistake. It's a built-in cycle. The company is set up in a way that it loses money. Those losses force it to take on debt. That debt requires government guarantees, and eventually those guarantees lead to taxpayer-funded bailouts. And then the whole thing just starts right over. And all of this leaves us with a really tough, fundamental question. It's that classic problem of choosing short-term survival over long-term health. The decision to guarantee these loans keeps the power on right now, but it comes at the direct expense of Meghalaya's future. It's a choice that has shaped the state's finances for years, and for now, it's a cycle that just keeps on spinning.